Hi everyone, my name is Aru. I use she, her pronouns. I coordinated the front-loading process, and as we come up on ratification, I wanted to make a little video explaining what front-loading is, why we did it, what we actually did, and what were some of the learnings, so that we could all be on the same page leading up into ratification. And yeah, that's basically gonna be what this video is about. So I'm gonna start by zooming back in time to 2019. Before I was on staff with Sunrise, I was a volunteer, and I was like a hub coordinator, and I absolutely loved Sunrise. I fell in love with its strategy, with organizing. I felt really transformed. Like I would do like anything and everything for the movement. And so in early 2019, I made the decision to stop going to college for a bit to organize with Sunrise full time. And I started Sunrise as training instructor, which I loved. And in 2019, we were doing these big movement-wide summits. And leading up to the summits, I remember being so excited to go. I was like, I loved meeting people. I loved training people. It was the first time so many of us had gathered. I was just like hype off of the energy. And for I really loved going to them as well. And also, as I was going to them, I felt like I was realizing and noticing a lot of the cracks in Sunrise and Sunrise's DNA, and realizing that those cracks were going to stop us from building a movement that could win really serious legislation for the Green New Deal. I'm starting to feel alarmed. The first thing I noticed as I went to summits was just how much we were struggling to build a base across race and class. I would be training and look out at the room and just see so few black and brown faces out there, and it just felt I felt clear, especially in cities like Detroit and Nashville. I was looking at it, I was like, this is not going to serve us in order to build the biggest and most bold base that we need in order to win the policies that we're demanding. And it just felt hard, and it felt clear. The other thing I was noticing from talking to people was that a lot of our hubs were really struggling to build a base at all outside of a committed core team of 9 or 10 people, or 5 to 10 people. And yeah, that just I remember having that conversation in the Midwest, and then having the same conversation in the Northeast, and the same one in the West, and the same in the South. And I was like, oh, everywhere people are just don't have strategy or tactics that are serving them in their ability to build a base. And then the third thing that felt really clear was that our movement was getting to a size where relationships no longer stitched us together, and that it felt like questions that we had just never asked about, how do we make decisions, how do volunteers actually get decision-making power, were becoming more and more important, and we didn't really have any answers to them. So those are some of the things I was noticing, and talked to other people. A lot of people were feeling the same way. And the other thing that was happening at the time was that it was the Bernie and Biden primary time, as we went into 2020 especially. It was becoming clear that whatever the next phase of Sunrise was, it wasn't going to be, it could be something pretty different from resisting under Trump. And we were like, okay, how do we actually prepare for whatever the political conditions are going to be 2 years from now, or 1 year from now, or 5 years from now? So we decided to front load. And one of the core reasons that we chose front loading as a process rather than, having the leadership team just do strategic planning or something else, is that front loading was really about the ability of a small group of people to go really deep in research and in different directions and explore a lot of options in order to bring different perspectives and come to alignment. And it put a lot of faith in the team and the ability of a team of everyday, ordinary people to do really bold and great things. And part of the theory was also you need that type of team to be able to get into conflict about very serious things emotionally, so that people are actually able to fully say what they believe, but also have the trust in each other to move through disagreements and come to agreement. And come to shared strategy. So that was some of the belief behind front loading. And yeah, I think we have a lot of learnings about what of that was helpful and what of that really posed struggles when we were front loading in an existing movement rather than a new movement, but more on that later. And we started the front-loading process by selecting the team. And what that looked like is nominations were open to everyone. A lot of people from the movement nominated, a couple people self-nominated, and there was a selection team of myself, a volunteer named Denai Lewis, who was from Florida, a Becca Rast, who was a movement mentor who was Bernie's field director and worked with Justice Democrats, and Young Jung Cho, who coordinated the Green New Deal Network and worked with or led Bernie's constituency team. So that was the selection team, open to anyone to nominate. Had like 80 applicants or so, went through this pretty intense selection process, and all along the way, I was really trying to build a team that I believed could intervene on some of the biggest challenges that we were facing as a movement. So half volunteers and like half staff, super majority Black and brown, majority working class. I wasn't trying to build like a team of like the perfect people or the all-stars. It actually felt more important that they fit together as a team and could work together to figure out some of the key challenges in Sunrise and move us to a more powerful place in our strategy towards a Green New Deal. And I was like so excited the whole time. I was like, okay, this is like the team that I will like grow really close to, so I can get into strategic conflict with them and we can make decisions that like guide us to a better place. So the team started meeting in October, but then it was the 2020 elections, so we didn't actually start meeting until like the end of January. And we divided up into 3 sub-teams. We divided up into strategy, which was talking about like what does Sunrise do next, like what's the political moment we're in. Story, which is like how do we talk about ourselves and the political moment, and the power that we're building and our strategy. What was culture, which is about how do we lead, what are our principles, what are we trying to guard for, and structure, which was about like how do we relate to each other, how do we structure our chapters, how do our chapters like our hubs and chapters relate to each other, etc. And so we like, dove into the work, and the thing I'll say here is I think like having a small group, this theory about like the team of front loading, having a small group allowed us to really see each other in our differences. And I've never been on a team like that was so committed to being a team and to building a DNA together that would work for our whole movement. And we would go really in depth and talk about like all kinds of things. And I remember so many points where like the fact of our disagreement meant that it was only by being a team and caring about each other that we could decide on things that we felt were the best, and that commitment really enabled a lot of like nuance in our conversations, and that was really cool. So I'm gonna move a little bit more into like, okay, the Frontline team was formed, you had a team, this is what was important, whatever. What do we actually do during front-loading? I would say basically from May through October is when we did the most front-loading work. We were having retreats almost every month at that point, tackling questions like, what do we think is our biggest intervention in the political narrative? Or how do we structure our hubs to set them up to build power? And a lot of the discussions that we were having were really in the like nitty-gritty details and like drafting and redrafting and redrafting, and being like, how should a democratic body be structured? If we adopted an ideology, how would we work with politicians who didn't share that ideology? What are potential executive action demands? And threaded through everything was like this sense that we needed a strategy and a DNA that could help us build across race and class. So that was sort of the level of questions we were dancing around in. And one reflection I have here is actually just that, oh, sorry, my cat. One reflection that I have here is that we spent a lot of time while front loading exploring options for things that we didn't actually do. And so what the DNA is that's going up for ratification is actually like a distillation of here are all the paths not taken, and then here is sort of like what we were like, okay, this is what actually makes sense, just a reflection. We did that May through October, and then by October or so, we were ready to moving into asking people for feedback. I won't go super into that because I think there's another video about it coming, but we like talked to members of the public, members of the movement. We had roundtables this spring. had a lot of different calls with partners to be like, does this make sense? Is this the right direction? And doing a lot of like visioning and consultation with different people. And that was basically the heart of the front loading process. Before I close, I want to just like offer a couple short reflections. One is that one of my like the things I'm most proud of and the things I learned most about was how to build a team that could genuinely build alignment across race, class, and geography. I've never been on a team so different from each other in so many ways. And I think it meant a lot of our DNA had that lens when it was being created. And I think there's like a lot to learn there, obviously, and there always will be. But I'm really proud of that. Um, Another reflection that I have, which is like, yeah, just like a little less positive, is just I'm like, it was really hard to run a process with 12 people that was meant to bring along a whole movement. And the original front loading process as a template that we got, it had never been done by anybody else. It was designed for movements that didn't exist to start new movements, and that made it really, really hard to do. And we tried to do this a lot. Like we ran DNA reflection calls with 150 plus movement members. We ran like structure culture visioning sessions, monthly calls, and written updates to share what was happening. But every step along the way, I don't actually ever think that we figured out how to do this well. And it's one of the things that I really, really wish we had done well. And that's, yeah, one of my biggest learnings. And the other thing is, I'm just like, it was the first time anyone was re-front loading the way that we were, and there's just a lot that we've learned about how to do better, and also a lot was out of our control, like COVID, like just like the wild political moment that we have been living in. Um, yeah, those are some of my reflections. At the end of the day, I think I'll just say, while I do believe the process could have been better and we could have brought more people along, etc., I am just incredibly proud of the DNA that's going up for ratification. Um, I believe that if we move in this direction, we're moving in the right direction, not just for Sunrise, but for the whole left on what it actually means to build a mass movement across race and class in this political moment, what it means to like shamelessly confront elites where they wield power, and how to build strategic capacity for the next like 20, 30, 40 years of organizing. And I'm really proud of that. And I really hope we move in this direction. And I want people to vote how you most believe. And I think that's really important. And I want people to feel empowered to vote no if you don't believe in this direction. And I really do. So I guess I'm asking everyone to sign up for ratification, to come to any of the info sessions, to ask any questions that you need to be able to vote. I guess I'm just like, we're all in this for a Green New Deal, and I think being able to move forward together could just be really exciting. I think everything else, all information is in the link below, and feel free to reach out to me on Slack with any questions. Thanks, everyone. Bye.